Okay, so like I promised, I'm trying to help you find some boundaries, like an upper boundary and a lower boundary to figure out when am I done, even if I don't have the same number of roots as I do the degree of the polynomial. So it's going to be a lot of words, but it's going to make sense when I actually do the example, but we want to make sure we have the definitions written down. So if we're supposing C is some positive number, so it could be 3, 5, 10, whatever you want it to be, and the polynomial of just plain old x is divided by x minus c, meaning that you're plugging in c into the synthetic division, that if the quotient and the remainder have no change in sign, then p of x has no zeros greater than c. So if we talk about this in terms of this problem that we just finished, do you see that it's talking about the quotient and the remainder not having any sign changes? So do you see that they're all positive? So that means that 2 is is a largest number, and I can't find any zeros beyond 2. Now, if we look at 1, I have positive, positive, don't worry about it, and negative. So do you see that I did have a sign change? So that meant there was one more zero to the right of x is equal to 1, which we found. Okay? So to truly find the lower bound, it's a little bit more complicated, but I do have a shortcut. So we've got to learn the complicated to be able to learn the shortcut, okay? So we're going to say if we change the polynomial to p of negative x, so remember that changes the sign of every odd exponent coefficient. So if we said if k is the upper bound of that new polynomial, then the opposite of k is the lower bound of the actual polynomial. So let's put that to use, and then I'll show you the shortcut when we look back at that problem we just finished. So notice I set up my new style of synthetic division on the left where we're going to talk about p of x, and on the right where we're going to talk about p of negative x. And in both cases, we start with 0 and we work our way up. Okay, so looking at my upper bound, I've got 3, 2, 1, nothing. And so I'm going to pull them just like I see them, 6, negative 7, negative 14, and 15. And then I'm going to do my synthetic division until I have no sign changes. So the beauty is if I have a sign change, I don't need to go any further with that line. So when I drop the 6, 0 times 6 is 0, plus negative 7 is negative 7. And do you see that I just got a sign change? So I don't care what else happens, that is not an upper bound. So then if I drop the 6, 1 times 6 is 6, and 6 plus negative 7 is negative 1. Again, sign change, I don't care what else happens. So the next one, we're going to drop the 6. 2 times 6 is 12, and 12 plus negative 7 gives me 5. So good news, I still have the same sign, so I can move forward. So 2 times 5 makes 10, and 10 plus negative 14 is negative 4. So sadly, we got further, but not all the way. So then I'm going to try 3. So I'm going to drop the 6. 3 times 6 is 18, and 18 plus negative 7 is 11. And then 3 times 11 is 33. And so 33 and negative 14 make 19. And then 3 times 19, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe is 57. But the big news is it's a big positive number plus a positive number, and we get a positive number. We really don't care what it is. So now, do you see that in my quotient and in my remainder, I don't have any sign changes? And so we could say that the upper bound, which you could call the UB if you want, is going to be 3 because that was the first number that gave me all of the same sign. Okay, so now when I'm looking for the lower bound, I have to talk about p of negative x. So remember from the previous section that anything that has an odd exponent is going to change the sign of the coefficient. So that means this odd exponent is now going to be negative 6. This even exponent stays the same. This odd exponent changes to positive 14, and then this one doesn't even have an x, so it's going to stay the same. So if you don't believe me, you can substitute negative x into each of these and then figure out that it ends up that way. So again, we're going to start with 0 and work our way up. We don't have any negative numbers in here. So we've got negative 6. 0 times negative 6 is 0, plus negative 7 is negative 7. So far, so good. 0 times negative 7 is 0, plus 14 is 14. So I got a sign change, so I'm done with that row. It is not the lower bound, or it's not the upper bound of this function here. So then coming down here, we've got negative 6. So 1 times negative 6 is negative 6, plus negative 7 gives me negative 13. 1 times negative 13 is going to give me negative 13, plus 14 gives me positive 1. So I'm a little closer to having the wrong sign, but I'm sorry, to having a negative, but I'm not there yet. So then when I drop the negative 6, we get 2 times negative 6 is negative 12. Negative 12 plus negative 17 is negative 19. And then 2 times negative 19 is negative 38. And negative 38 plus 14, I believe, is negative 24. And then 2 times negative 24 is negative 48. And I could either figure out that this is going to be negative 33, or I could at least recognize that it's negative. And so what I want you to see is, again, from my quotient to my remainder, we didn't have any sign changes. So that means that 2 is the upper bound of p of negative x. And so then what the definition said for lower bound is, if 2 is the upper bound for p of negative x, then the lower bound is the opposite of 2. So the lower bound is going to be negative 2, or we'll call that the LB. Okay? So what that tells me is I'm going to put the negative 2 on the left because it's the smallest number, and I'm going to put the biggest number on the right, and that means that all of my zeros lie between these two values. So if I check every integer value between negative 2 and positive 3, and I don't find a 0, then I don't have any zeros of that function that are real. Okay? Now, here's the beautiful thing. If you notice, I end up changing the sign of every other term. Okay? So let's come back here and take a look at something interesting. So here, if I look at negative 4 would be the lower bound because that is a number where there are no more zeros to the left of negative 4. Just like positive 2, there are no zeros to the right of positive 2. So if I look at the quotient and the remainder, something interesting happens. We've got a positive 2, a negative 3, a positive 5, and a negative 23. So if I can get these to be alternating, positive, negative, then I know that that number is a lower bound, and I don't have to check any numbers smaller than negative 4 because they won't come up to the x-axis. So if I'm working out a problem, the highest I can go is when the quotient and the remainder are the same sign, and the lowest number is where the quotient and the remainder are flip-flopping signs, positive, negative, positive, negative. So it's a nice way to break it down from every possible number in the universe to a little boundary like in that previous problem from negative 2 to positive 3, and this one it would be from negative 4 to positive 2. So that's a lot less numbers to check than infinity. Okay? So hopefully this helps. If you need help, please make a tutoring session with me and give yourself some good amount of time to get this homework done.